Hey everyone, and welcome to a special year-end episode of Inside Quest. Today it's just you and I in the room, but rest assured our bevy of superstar guests will be making an occasional appearance to inspire us. Behind the founding of Quest Nutrition is a very particular mindset. In fact, it's a highly cultivated belief system that we call the Quest mindset. It's not something you're born with, it's something that you decide to build for yourself. For anyone who decides that they want to think in the Quest way, it starts with a choice, and that choice is simple. You decide that beginning right here, right now, I'm going to choose to do and believe that which moves me towards my goals, and I'm not going to do and believe anything that moves me away from my goals. It's a mindset of empowerment. It's pragmatic and fundamental in its simplicity. It's the student's mindset. And my life changed forever the day that I decided I was going to embrace it with every ounce of my being. It changed everything in my life so profoundly and for the better, in fact, that I promised that one day I would share that mindset with as many people as I could. And it was from that desire to pass on the gift that was given to me that Inside Quest was born. The show is my way of getting face to face with the most amazing thinkers on this planet, because if you want to be the best, you've got to train with the best. I see myself as a mental athlete. I'm dedicated to my training, hungry to improve, willing to outwork anyone, and always looking for ways to push the limits of my capabilities. I wanted to bring you guys behind the scenes so that you could see that there's no fancy tricks that you'll need. It's merely hard work and disciplined focus that deliver the results you're after. And it's my hope that this show sparks in you the change of mentality that set me free from my own limitations. On today's episode, as the year draws to a close, we're going to take a look back at some of the most powerful moments from this year's amazing guests. I pulled some clips that I think are incredibly meaningful and are worth discussing further. This is not a show for empty dreamers. Those on a quest are doers. So as you watch this episode, or any episode for that matter, get ready to act. Understanding is not enough. You've got to do something with that knowledge. And to everyone that came on the show, I am eternally in your debt. You are helping me become a better version of myself, and I hope I've honored your time here by showing that I see your words and ideas as a treasure map, and I have every intention of following that map to the concepts, ideas, and experiences that will ultimately shape me into the person that I'm trying to become. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. I think this is going to be amazing. Without further ado, we're going to dive into the first clip, and it comes from one of the people who I am literally just blown away by, a woman named Carol Dweck. She wrote the book that I consider to be the most important book in the English language, and I say that from the position of somebody who really believes that the very purpose of life, and I'm fully aware that everybody defines that differently, but to me, the very purpose of life is to see how many skills you can acquire that have utility and then put that utility to the test. And I've tried to be recursive and explain why that's so important to me, so bear with me here as I walk through this. The reason that I think that that's the purpose of life is if you push people and ask them what they want, they're going to tell you that they want to be happy. But nobody really talks that next step, which is what is the fundamental building block to happiness? Like, what is that keystone piece? The one without which everything falls apart. And I really believe, and I believe this through experience myself and seeing other people, that keystone brick to happiness is progress. It's getting better, it's improving, it's feeling like you're moving forward. And there's something just incredibly fundamentally true about that for the human experience. And when you look at things from an evolutionary perspective, there's something baked into the human genome that propels us to keep moving forward. Humans have a desire born of evolution to conquer their environment, to grow and progress, and constantly improve their position. When you put in that ambition, when you put in that a desire to master your environment, that mastering your environment is in and of itself an innate driver, and that without that you can't possibly have happiness. If you buy into that the most fundamental building block of happiness is progress, then to me, the acquisition of skills becomes the very purpose of life. And so that's what drives me. It was recognizing that within myself, there was this drive to get better at things. And it was merely that, just to get better. I just want to improve. And that filled me with such joy and confidence and self-esteem that I knew that it was something super, super fundamental if it were universal, right? Because there was a chance that it was just me, but in my every encounter with people, I find that same universal truth to be there. So Carol Dweck's book to me is so foundational to the human experience that it is my greatest sadness for people who go through life with what she calls a fixed mindset. In this clip, she explains the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset, and spoiler alert, growth mindset wins always. Check it out.
In the book, I spell out two mindsets. In a fixed mindset, you think your basic qualities, your intelligence, your talents are just fixed traits. And that takes people away from learning. It pushes them to want to look like they're smart, brilliant, talented all the time. But then there's a growth mindset where people think their talents and abilities can be developed. And this mindset is totally organized around learning and the processes that promote.
Yeah, to me, that right there is the most fundamental concept of success. And if you want to be successful, and it really doesn't matter how you define success, it really doesn't matter what the specific manifestations of success are for you. If you want to be successful, it all starts with a growth mindset. And the reason for that is there's something truly strange in the way that humans think. And one of the most universal ways that we think, if you think of the operating system that you have from birth, the thing that's innate in all of us, is a desire to feel good about ourselves. And all of the big disconnects in your life where you got into a huge fight with somebody, or you said something to somebody and they reacted really grandly and you couldn't imagine, like, what is going on here? Their reaction is so out of proportion with what just happened. I promise you, in that exchange, somehow, some way, intentional or otherwise, you have triggered an insecurity in that person. And when you trigger an insecurity, something that attacks the fundamental beliefs that that person has about themselves, and you make them feel worse about themselves, and again, 99 times out of 100, that wasn't your intention. But that's what's happened. And their body goes into protective mechanism. It's called the psychological immune system. It's actually pretty well researched. It's a very powerful concept that you guys will want to really come to understand because it's at work in you, right? And it's like, I feel psychologically we're where we were before people realized that infections were spread in hospitals because people weren't washing their hands, right? Because they didn't understand the immune system. They didn't understand germs. They didn't know what was going on. The same things are happening in your mind, right? There are protective mechanisms going on that if you don't understand what they are, they're going to lead you in a direction you don't necessarily want to go. So the psychological immune system, its goal is to protect you from feeling bad about yourself. And you will do all kinds of crazy things to ensure that you don't feel badly about yourself. And that is born of that fixed mindset. And that's why I believe that this thing is so fundamental. Because if you go to somebody and they believe they'll never be any smarter than they are the day they were born, they'll never be any better from a talent perspective, whether that's playing the piano, athletic ability, business, whatever, they're never going to get any better. So when they encounter somebody that's better than them, that is a permanent state. They are forever worse than that person. So now they want to protect that ego, so they're going to avoid those situations. Now, they may be dimly aware of it, totally aware of it, or not aware of it at all. Usually when people have a fixed mindset and they're desperately trying to protect that ego, they're just not going to put themselves in that situation. So they're avoiding opportunities that could allow them to grow and really push themselves forward. So I would say right now, in this moment, if you do one thing, it will change every aspect of the rest of your life. And that is to adopt a growth mindset. And a growth mindset is truly freeing because it frees you from your psychological immune system, at least as it manifests in terms of being afraid to try something new or to fail at it or to not be good in this moment. Because what it does is it allows you, you're going to still build your self-esteem. I don't think that ever goes away. But you're going to take your self-esteem away from being tied to being good and move it to the ability to get good. Now that, what may seem like a subtle shift, will change everything about your life. When you truly adopt a growth mindset, what happens is when you fall on your face, there's almost a little bit of excitement. I get giddy sometimes when I fail. I get giddy sometimes when I fail really publicly because I know in that moment I get to earn my reputation as somebody who really has a growth mindset. But I can't prove it to myself unless I fail. right? So I actually need those opportunities. I need dangerous moments psychologically. That's how I have forced myself to live my life. It is not where I started. And I started with the world's most fixed mindset. So that one, the reason that I wanted to open the show with that one change to go from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset so truly embodied that failure makes you giggle to yourself, the most public, horrifying failure makes you giggle to yourself because you know, I'm now going to grow. Because this sting has pointed out a flaw in my game that I was unaware of up until this moment, and I will keep going, and I will acquire this skill. All right. To Dr. Carol Dweck, thank you again for coming on the show. You are an amazing human being, and your ideas are breathtaking. They changed my life. I am only sad that I had to learn so much of it over a very painful 10-year period in my life because I didn't know your book existed. But since I discovered it, I have recommended your book to as many people as will listen. And thank you for coming on the show. Getting to meet you was truly a gift, and I was honored. So thank you. All right, next up is Rainn Wilson. I'm sure many of you know him as Dwight Schrute from The Office, but getting to know Rainn was really, really a joy. And when he was first pitched to me, I'm gonna be really honest, I was super skeptical about having Rainn on the show. And the reason that I was skeptical was I didn't want the show to be about famous people coming on and just telling stories. Like, that's not how I got out of the Matrix. And my promise when we started the show was I was going to make a sincere effort to get people out of the Matrix. Not just talk about it, but actually do it. And Rainn is a deeply thoughtful man, has some absolutely incredible ideas that were hard-won through failure, but he picked himself back up and he kept going. And Rainn delivered on that promise in spades. He is truly an authentic individual. And when you think about some of TV's most memorable characters in the last 10 years, of course, you do think about his character, Dwight Schrute. That makes the list for sure. But as memorable as Dwight may be, Rainn in real life, he's worked to guarantee that he makes an even bigger impact, and I really respect him for that. So if you guys don't know about Soul Pancake, be sure to go check it out. You'll see him bring to the table a style of art that is very lacking in today's world, which is really upbeat, optimistic content that's aimed at millennials and really anybody that wants to be inspired and see life from truly an optimistic perspective. And when they started, that was nowhere to be found on the internet. And they've really been a vanguard of a truly beautiful movement. And I'm excited to bring you some of his ideas here. So let's take a look.
You've got to have failures to learn from your failures. Those are going to be your greatest growth experiences. And when I did that play London Assurance in New York, I was cast on a lead play on Broadway, and I was just out of school for a couple of years, and I was really excited, and I sucked, and I was terrible. And I got bad reviews, and I knew, and I was stuck, and I was lost, and I was in over my head, and I'd put all this pressure on myself to try and impress other people and to look good for other people, and I wanted the good reviews, and I wanted success, and it froze me as an artist completely. I looked like a deer in the headlights through the entire process, and I would spend hours on the phone with my wife, and I would talk to her every night, weeping on the phone. How do I get through this? And I did. I got through that, and it was revolutionary for me. I fired my agents. I went out on the street. I saw myself as a different person. I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm never again going to try and be what anyone else wants me to be. That's it. I am done with that. That way is death. I have to be me. I'm going to do things my own way. And you can know that. You can be told that. You have to experience that in your body and just like, ugh, I'm done with that.
Yeah, I love that clip. Authenticity. It is the most terrifying thing you will ever do. And it's going to be the thing that you struggle with the most. Because being accepted is awesome, right? Being admired is awesome. Being loved by your peers is awesome. There's an amazing quote by a man who unfortunately has passed away who changed my life. His name is Joseph Campbell. One day remind me to tell you the story of the ritualistic scarification that I participated in as a part of my wedding. And Joseph Campbell said, this is a paraphrase, but the greatest joy in life is to be who you truly are. The greatest gift in life is to be who you truly are. Now, I like to dig into something and find out why that's true, because I just got the chills saying it, and I know the quote very well, but still saying it like gives me the chills. And hopefully it really impacted you guys and you hear what he's trying to say. And the reason I think that really is the greatest joy in anyone's life is there's such a harmony when you're being you, right? You're not fighting your instincts or your impulses or the things that make you odd or awkward. They're also the things that make you unique and interesting. And there was a great quote by Avicii, the DJ. But when I read it, I was like, wow, that's so cool. And it really helped me understand why I like his music so much. And he said, I obsessively look for singers with flaws in their voice. Because it's those flaws that make them interesting. It's those flaws that make them so memorable, right? But what do we all try to do? We all try to polish away the flaws. And it's such an amazing thing to know that in all of human history, there's never been someone just like you. Even if you're an identical twin, even if at a genomic level you're identical to somebody else, what you will be able to offer the world is fundamentally different because you're shaped by your environment as much as you're shaped by your genetics. You're shaped by your time period as much as you're shaped by your genetics and your environment. Like all of these confluence of events come together to create something amazing. So all of those things that you think are wounds, are hurts, are things that have degraded you or chipped away at who you are, they're just the things that have made your voice more unique. They're the things that make you you. They're the things that make you truly a snowflake that will never be repeated. And in that uniqueness, there's something wonderful. In knowing that you have never been before, nor will you ever be again, even if they cloned you. You, as you are right now, will never be again. And having the audacity to believe that, having the willingness to then share your voice and share the things that you believe, that's when shit gets interesting. And that's why I go out of my way to remind people, I'm not interested in people coming to Quest and conforming. I'm interested in people coming to Quest as themselves, drinking deeply of what we have to offer, and then doing something that is entirely unique to you here at this company. In the company, it should be an expression of you. Whatever your role is, whatever your job is, you should do it in the way that only you would do it, right? That doesn't mean go be a rogue nation. It doesn't mean go act the fool. But it means like bring you to the table, right? When you have a view or a vision that's different, share it, believe it, trust it, voice it. And in that, the only warning I will give you is never be dogmatic. Never say foolish things like, well, that's me, you take it or leave it. Because that's somebody who doesn't have a goal. Or worse, they actually have a goal, and that goal is merely to plant a flag and say, this is who I am forever and ever, and fuck anybody who doesn't like it. That's an emotional suicide mission, right? Because it's not an effective way of getting what you want out of life. But if you can avoid dogma, if you can avoid your ideas calcifying, if you can say, this is me and I'm always open to an even more interesting way of thinking or doing or going and doing experiences that change you. One thing I always tell people, books will change you, but only if you let them, right? I read a bunch of books and they changed my life. And I went from king of remedial jobs to running this company, right? The world of difference that is startling because I let those books change me. Other people have read those same books and their life looks exactly the same because they didn't open themselves up to being changed. So while you should cling fiercely to your individualism, you should love the things that are weird and unique and special about you, you should also always be looking for that opportunity to grow. All right, Rain, my man, thank you so much for bringing that idea to the table. You've brought so many fascinating ideas, and anybody that hasn't read his book, He's actually got 2 out now. He's got the one that they did at Soul Pancake, Chew on Life's Big Questions. And then he also has an autobiography called The Bassoon King, which is absolutely hilarious. Definitely check it out. It's got some really amazing stories. He's an amazing individual, and you will see him bringing up things like that and across all of life's spectrum of interesting and important questions. Absolutely fantastic. You will enjoy his world. All right, next up, we have the one, the only Tim Ferriss. Now, Tim Ferriss is somebody that was introduced to me in my darkest of days, back at our last company when I had given myself over completely to profitability, to doing that which was most profitable. My partners and I, we had a pact with each other. We would do what was ever profitable if it meant skipping an anniversary, if it meant showing up at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, all of which we have done. Then that's what you did. And you did whatever it took to make a more profitable company. That ended up burning me out, ended up burning all 3 of us out, and the depths of frustration that we reached in not paying attention to what is authentically us, and not recognizing those things that we believe so deeply, that we're so passionate about, that even when it was hard that we would keep fighting, that even if we were failing we would love, and never saying that's what we're going to do, we really, really came to a dark place emotionally. At that moment, a book comes across my desk. And it was a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. And I read that book cover to cover. And it was this really eye-opening vision of how you could build a lifestyle instead of just a business. And that was an incredibly interesting notion to me. A lifestyle instead of just a business. And could I marry a lifestyle with a business that had every intention of becoming one of the largest companies on the planet? Like when people think about a lifestyle business, they see that as a choice. You either have a lifestyle business, never really grows, doesn't go anywhere, or you have a major corporation and it's not a lifestyle business. And that seemed like a false dichotomy. I had already lived this. I knew what this did, and it sucked the life out of people, sucked the life out of me and everyone around us and in the company. Nobody came to work with that joy. And I thought that there's something fundamentally wrong about that assumption. If people can find joy in what they do, if they can show up every day for selfish, albeit beautiful reasons, why can't this be a beautiful entity, growing, thriving, serving a community, big, massive, a multi-billion-dollar company? Why can't it be both? And in reading his book, I began to find some of the answers. And one of the answers was find your 1,000 true fans. And that was a calling card. For me, it wasn't, and if you hear Tim talk, look, you're going to fill your time with something. The idea isn't actually to only work 4 hours. The idea is to become so efficient that you could run a business in 4 hours and leave yourself time to pursue other things you're very passionate about. So I wasn't trying to reduce the amount that I was working. I was trying to work in a way that was more fulfilling, that was efficient, but that acknowledged this thing that I had in my gut that was a grand company, a big company, a company that dared to dream absolutely massively, could be fun on a daily basis. And that concept of 1,000 true fans was that thing that we really clung to. So let's take a look at the clip, and I'll give you guys some more thoughts on the 1,000 true fans and others.
I think it was Carlos Castaneda actually who said, whether you make yourself happy or you make yourself miserable, the amount of energy required is the same. And so it's like focus on building yourself up. And the way you do that is by asking better questions. And the power of these questions is just incredible.
So there you have an entrepreneur, somebody who's incredibly successful, and he's talking about building yourself up, right? And what that looks like, and how you can marry the concepts that he goes into detail in his book with that desire, that hunger for personal development and growth. So asking the right questions is so fundamental and so powerful. I encourage you guys all to really think about the questions that you ask yourself, because it will determine everything about your life. And Tony Robbins talks very powerfully about your life is determined by the quality of your questions, right? So Tony Robbins has a great example where he says, if you really want to find fulfillment in your life, ask the question, how was the worst day of my life the best thing that ever happened to me? Think about the shift that causes in your mind, right? You go from viewing the worst day of your life as that, some sort of weird cosmic punishment. It was bad, it's negative, doom and gloom. It should be seen as this horrible experience. It should occupy a place in your mind of darkness. It's bad, it's dragging you down. Now, take that same day, the same events, whatever happened, happened. But now ask a different question. how is it the best thing that ever happened to me? When I was in my dark days, as I called them, back at our last company, it seemed like the worst thing that had ever happened to me. And when I started saying, how is this the best thing that ever happened to me? I realized that Quest was a company born of misery, and how amazing that was, because I was so angry. I was so frustrated. I was so hell-bent to do things differently that almost out of spite, I was like, I'm going to make every day beautiful. I'm going to love what I do. Even if we fail, it's going to be fun. And those became like the building blocks. But I never would have gotten to that. I never would have gotten to that aggressive mandate that, we're going to have fun, damn it. But we never would have gotten there if it hadn't been miserable, because we would have just kept going along. You get what you focus on. You get what you focus on. If you focus on fear, dread, incompetence, possible danger, possible failure, then that's where your mind is. Your mind is totally consumed by those thoughts. But if, on the other hand, you think about possibility, what can be, how good you can get, the amazing things that could happen, then that's what your mind is consumed by. Mark Devine, a guest that we had on the show, likens it to two wolves. There are two wolves in your nature. You're going to get more of whichever one you feed. You've got the fear wolf, you've got the courage wolf. If you feed the fear wolf, you get a strong wolf, all geared towards fear. But if you feed the courage wolf, on the other hand, you get a strong wolf, all geared towards doing, being courageous. The questions that you ask yourself will determine your life. To bring it back around to what I was saying, the 1,000 true fans, once I stopped asking the question, how can I be more profitable? This changed everything in my life. And all of you sitting here are because of this one question. Instead of asking, what do I need to do to be more profitable? We started asking, what do we need to do to serve those 1,000 true fans? How can I be more meaningful in their life? How can I bring more value to their life? That was it. That was the change. But it changed everything. It changed everything. You wouldn't recognize me when I was asking, what do I need to do to be more profitable? I was angry. I was sullen. I was aggressive. And then once I started focusing on value, it was more fun for me. I started having fun, because that's a cool feeling, right? What can I do to help this person? I need the profits to come. Don't get me wrong. This is not a Pollyanna story. And for a company to succeed, you've got to be financially viable in no uncertain terms. I need the company to be profitable, and I certainly make decisions to make sure that that happens. But do you guys know Viktor Frankl? Viktor Frankl survived a concentration camp, multiple concentration camps. And he came out of it saying the people who didn't, the people who died, were the ones that gave up. They didn't have a sense of meaning. They didn't know why they were suffering the way that we were suffering. So they had nothing to fight for. And he said, happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue. Happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue. In his case, it ensued from a mindset of finding the reason that he was willing to suffer, whether it was for his family, whether it was to live a meaningful life once the war was over, whatever. But the people who made it, they found some reason, something that compelled them to move forward. So when you have that, when you recognize that happiness must ensue from something else, everything changes. And for us in business, we realized profits, you can't pursue them. They must ensue from all the other things that you do. Profits must ensue from bringing value. Profits must ensue from building a community and helping them achieve what they want, bringing on employees and making their life better, focusing on making the company the most beautiful thing that ever happened to the employee, and recognizing when you fall short and working to make that better. From that, profits will ensue. But I promise you, as somebody who's done it, the more you chase profits, the more elusive they become. And that company, where we were chasing profits, all we thought was profits, 3 smart, hungry, dedicated guys, chasing profits every day with disciplined focus. We made in a day in Quest what that company makes annually by asking one different question. How can I bring value to my 1,000 true fans? So however successful this one was, it is dwarfed, not only in emotional and spiritual joy, fulfillment, happiness, but just raw dollars. Once we stopped asking the question of profitability and we accepted that it had to ensue from other choices, then really exciting things happen, because that is acknowledging the human experience. That's acknowledging what you need to do to really connect with people. So, Mr. Ferris, I thank you very much for that contribution, both in your book and coming on the show. The importance of asking the right questions is astonishingly simple and incredibly, incredibly powerful. It changes everything. All right, this next one is a big one. This guy, even before the camera started rolling, had a big impact on me. His name is Keith Ferrazzi, and in this clip, you're going to see him asking a question about how. And the question of how is something that really changed my life. And he was once the youngest CMO of a Fortune 500 company, but he really didn't stop there. He wanted to see how far he could take connection, his ability to really connect with people. Could he turn that into a business? Could he use that to find a whole another level of success? And he did. But at the end of the day, for him, it comes down to procedure. It comes down to the how. And as a man who spent a lot of time asking why, this is a very powerful clip for me.
Many companies talk about the why all the time. You know, big, major, very prestigious and well-respected consultancies like McKinsey and others are constantly trying to understand what a company should do differently. You know, why did we get here and what's the positioning, etc. I don't give a damn. Yes, you need a strategy. Yes, you need a process. But almost every company intellectually understands those things. Right. The question is how? How are you going to go from here to here? Because at the end of the day, there's a bunch of people that need to, what we call, open up porosity. Yeah. So at some point in your life, porosity, porousness is the absorptive factor. A sponge is very porous, right? A pan or a Teflon is not. It just slides off you. Most of us walk around this world like Teflon. Everything slides off us. Very little gets in, really soaks in. So if you're trying to change a human and achieve human behavior change, the question is, how do you open up porosity? And I know one of the great levers of opening up porosity is opening yourself up to people who can guide you in that process, because it's process change that has to happen. So where's your how?
Yeah, so he'd actually posed that question to me before we started rolling the cameras, and it really, really hit me. And I said, dude, we've got to talk about that on camera, because this is like, you're in this moment, you're shifting my entire perspective. If I could give you guys a gift, it would be this. Let yourself be impacted. Let yourself be changed. Yeah? Let yourself be changed. Like, open up to really being impacted and saying right here, right now, in this moment, I'm going to let this new piece of knowledge fundamentally impact my behaviors. And so in that moment, I realized that I had this decade of focusing on why. I needed to understand for myself why I do things. And in that why, it was so powerful for me. It moved me forward, and it gave me the energy that I needed to generate change in my life, to really move forward. And it was so important to me that I was constantly trying to help other people discover their why. But why is the empty dream? How is the execution that makes the dream a reality? I'm not interested in being an empty dreamer. And it's fun, and I use the word empty to make it derogatory, but I love dreaming, right? Dreaming is beautiful, and dreaming will allow you to paint a compelling future for yourself, but at some point, you've got to open your eyes and then create the world that you see in your dreams. You've got to create it. It's very active. It's not going to happen by itself. And that happens through the how. Like, okay, I've got this idea. I know how I want the world to be. But how am I going to do that? What are the actionable steps that I'm going to take? Now, I can't give you the how now because I don't know what your dream is. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish. I'll give you some generic hows. I promise you there's a gap between who you are today and who you need to become in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And by that I mean there are very simple, identifiable, attainable skills that you're going to need to get where you want to go. And then I will say the one universal thing that everyone needs to do, you got to get control of your own emotions. That is how number one. Get control of your emotions. Like totally embrace. The only thing that holds you back is your mindset. That's it. I know I'm going to do and believe that which moves me towards my goals. I'm not going to do or believe that which moves me away from my goals. And if it's gaining a skill, gain it, and then put it to use. Because it's about executing on your dreams. Executing on your passion. Taking concepts and making them real. That's the goal. So Keith, thank you for that, man. That was a big one for me. I've talked a lot about that. My wife and I have spent many an hour talking about the hows, all thanks to you. I'm truly grateful for that. All right, next up we have Robert Greene. When we posted this episode, I got a great comment from one of our viewers, Jacob Padilla, and he said, great discussion. There was a lot of bromance. It may be the most romantic hour of my life, but Robert Greene is the best-selling author of The 48 Laws of Power, Mastery, and the Art of Seduction, and a leadership consultant whose advice is sought by the most powerful people in the world. And it was really interesting to hear him talk about how he struggled in his early career because he wasn't being authentic to himself. And then once he realized the things that he was really drawn to, that maybe the rest of the world didn't want to hear, but he found so compelling and so interesting and so necessary in his own life that he wanted to write a book about that, and he did. This clip is pretty interesting, and I found it so interesting because it's not the typical thing that you hear from Robert Greene. So let's check it out.
Power begins from within. If you're aware of who you are, if you're aware of what you're good at, what you're not good at, if you're able to see how emotions kind of govern your life, if you can learn what your weaknesses are and how to control them, you can't ever get complete control, but awareness is almost enough. Slowly through this process of knowing who you are and understanding other people and how they operate so you don't make stupid mistakes in life, you can increase that little tiny margin more and more and more, and you will be a person of power.
Yeah, I love that concept. Being self-aware, right? Being self-aware. Until you're self-aware, like you'll never be able to get control of yourself. And if you can't get control of yourself, like he said, then you don't have that edge over the people that you're dealing with. So when I think about what finally allowed me to have success in business the way that I wanted, it was, and this is where that notion of I want to be a Jedi was born, because ultimately I wanted to be able to influence people. I wanted to be able to help them either get out of the matrix, or I wanted to help them have the kind of success that they wanted. But to do that, I could see, because I had to go through it, I had done that, I'd walked that path, right? And as somebody who's learned from those mistakes, I'm so desperate to help other people be wise that they can learn from my mistakes and not have to step on the same landmines. But it all comes down to really being self-aware. Now, part of that was selfish. I knew that to keep people in a company for a long time, it would make the company stronger and more agile, because there was a lot of trust among the group, because they were long-term relationships. In long-term relationships, you really do bond in a more unique way than when people are transient, come in and out of your life. And today, it used to be that people would spend their entire career, 30, 40 years at one company. Now the average is something like 2 years, which is crazy, right? So as an employer, it's like I really thought a lot about that. And so that notion of wanting to become a Jedi so that I could influence other people to create a beautiful experience for them so that they would want to stay, that became very important to me. And it became very obvious that step number one to influencing other people is to have control of yourself. So when Robert is talking about that self-assessment, it's got to be relentless, like relentlessly self-assessing and asking. And ask when your motives are ugly. And oh my God, your life will change. The day that you can admit that you're being petty, the day that you can admit you're being insecure and that your reaction is totally unjustified, and all they have done is trigger an insecurity in you, and now you're like, oh God, no, I want to feel cool again. Like, okay, maybe you can't stop it yet, but once you can recognize that that's what's happening, that is such a huge step in the right direction. Like, I'm well aware my motives are not always pure. I'm well aware that sometimes my motives are ugly and petty and just, oh God, there's like a terrified 11-year-old living inside my head, desperately grabbing at the controls. And all I've learned to do, because I've not yet learned to silence the terrified 11-year-old, but I've learned to never, ever let their hands touch the controls. That's it, right? And it's that level of self-awareness, of being able to say, wow, that's a really ugly motive of mine, without damaging my self-esteem. In fact, if you do things just right, when you recognize something really unpleasant about your mentality, let yourself feel good. Like, hey, I'm willing to accept that that's really stupid, without saying that makes me dumb. That's the self-awareness that Robert Greene is talking about. It really is powerful. All right, Robert, thank you for that, man. And your books are amazing. Mastery was just an earth-shattering book for me. It was absolutely incredible. I cannot thank you enough for sharing with the world. Yeah, absolutely incredible. And I hope you guys get a chance to really dive into the stuff that he's written. I think you will find it tremendously useful in your life. All right, next up is, oh man, you want to talk bromance? Let's talk about Ryan Holiday. All right, Ryan Holiday is, I worry sometimes that my wife is going to be jealous of how I think of Ryan Holiday's brain. You are the intellectual equivalent of a beautiful woman to me. There's just something about the way that you think that I have receptors for, man. To give you a little bit of background, Ryan Holiday was the genius behind American Apparel's marketing in the early days. He wrote a book called Trust Me, I'm Lying, Confessions of a Media Manipulator. Somebody that really just understands how the internet works, how information spreads, how to get things out into the world. But then he wrote a book. His publishers wanted him to do more and more marketing pieces. But he had been really impacted by Stoicism, but the way that he's able to translate what they're saying and put it into a modern context is absolutely powerful. And he wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way. The Obstacle is the Way is literally one of the most profound concepts that I can think of. And so let's let Ryan explain it, because if you really embody this, it will change your life. When you encounter an obstacle, if you stop thinking of it as something that's stopping you and thinking of it as something that you can use, everything changes. And how do they sum it up?
So the quote that I based the book on says, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And so what he's saying is, like, you and I are sitting, we wake up every day and we try to do something. You try to do this, you try to do that, you try to work on this project, you try to help this person, but you don't control. You control your choices, but you don't control how those choices are received, or the weather, or any number of external factors. Right. So what you set out to do can always be impeded or blocked in some way, or that's how you would think if you didn't understand Stoicism. And what Stoicism is saying is, no, whatever these new things are, right? I'm flying here to see you. My plane gets delayed. I get stuck in this city. So did I waste the day because I got stuck in an airport, or do I decide my response to this event is going to be fill in the blank? So
Stephen Hawking, I think, is the perfect example of this. And he was obviously a very bright man his entire life, but he himself says, if I hadn't had my illness and lost the use of my body, I don't think I ever would have had the breakthroughs in science that I ended up having. And so for him, the obstacle of being confined to a wheelchair and slowly losing so much of his physicality that in the end, I think now he's got like one muscle in his cheek that he can move, and that's how he does the controls the device that allows him to speak. But I mean, that is the degree to which this man is locked in his chair. And he said, because of that, I had to find a way to exist entirely in my mind. And I feared that the disease would take me very, very young, so I had very little time to come up with answers to some of these grand challenges, because I wanted to matter. I wanted to do something significant before I died. And so his world is reducing. He's afraid that he's on a very short time clock. And so he goes deep into his mind and does, in sort of the Einsteinian tradition of using your mind as the only laboratory that you need. And he starts thinking through these problems and comes up with what seem to be true answers about the nature of black holes. And it's really leading the direction of a large portion of what's happening in physics. It's utterly breathtaking. And it's all being done by a man who anybody else would be tempted to say, well, my life is over, right? Why is it even worth living? But in accepting that, hey, this obstacle can become the path to my success, can become the actual thing that fuels my success, if you'd asked him at 20 or whatever before it started taking hold, hey, do you want it? Here's where it ends, or do you not want it? I'm going to guess that it would be a hard choice to make to say, yes, lock me into the wheelchair and confine me to only being able to move my cheek, right? That's a hard thing to accept for anybody. So, but once it happens, the human propensity and ability is to go one of two ways. You either go dark and everything's bad and gloomy, or you recognize that, as Ryan Holiday said, the impediment to action advances action. That which stands in the way becomes the way. It's a really, really powerful quote. Rather than saying, why is this impediment a problem? You say, how can I use this impediment to more rapidly get where I want to go? Just changing that question totally empowers you and will move you forward at a much faster pace. All right. Ryan, my man, always an absolute pleasure. Ryan's one of those people that I've gotten to know outside of the world of Inside Quest, and just an incredible, incredible human being. And behind the scenes is helping us do cool things with the show. So Ryan, thank you. Thank you for your guest recommendations. Some of the people you've gotten on the show have just been absolutely amazing, and your continued support is not lost on us. We're very, very grateful. All right. Next up is the badass of badasses, Tim Grover. This man, just when I thought I held myself to a high standard, I met Tim Grover. And if you've not read his book, Relentless, you must read it. It is not for the faint of heart, man. This guy is intense on a level that's just I've never seen before. It's absolutely amazing. And he was the first trainer to Michael Jordan, and he's gone on to train some of the biggest names in basketball, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade among them, but many, many others. And he has a cool concept that he calls being a cleaner, which is higher than being a closer. So he's got coolers, closers, and cleaners. I always thought I wanted to be a closer, which is the person you can always count on. The chips are down, man, they're gonna deliver. Until I heard that there's a whole nother level above that, which is a cleaner. Somebody that does whatever it takes to become successful. They are never outworked. And he paints a pretty amazing picture. But in this clip, he actually talks about something a little bit different. It's really cool. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. It's a powerful message. But without further ado, let's let him take it away.
I firmly believe that everybody in this room, everybody on this planet has a gift. It's your job to figure out what that gift is. Then it becomes your job to decide whether you're going to act on that or not. I hear stuff all the time. People say, oh, look in the mirror and you'll see why you're not succeeding. I don't believe that, okay? It's what you don't see in the mirror. That's what's holding you back. It's what you're not willing to see is why talent is not enough. And when you finally see it and accept it and decide to work on it, then you can take that next level.
Tim's a really fascinating guy, and he embodies a lot of the different principles. So if you don't know, Tim wanted to be a professional basketball player. That was his dream. And he was playing college basketball, and he blew out his knee and realized that he was never going to play again, and thought, okay, going back to Ryan Holiday's thing, this impediment to action needs to become the thing that moves the action forward. The obstacle needs to become the way. And he said, if I can't be a basketball player, I'm going to learn more about the human body and what needs to happen to it in order to play at the highest level. I'm going to know more about that than anybody else in the world. I'm going to become the greatest in the world at that. And it's an awesome tale of somebody who sets out not to be good, not even to be great, but to be the greatest of all time. I love that. Like I get it. Not everybody's going to reach that level. And maybe I will never become the greatest of all time at the things that I'm trying to become the greatest of all time at. But I still love the pursuit. And Tim will tell you, he's never going to be done. He's never going to be finished. He's never going to reach the top and then stop. You're always trying to get better. You're always trying to push yourself forward. And that's beautiful. But here's a guy who had every reason to give up, to feel sorry for himself, to quit, and he didn't. He said, I'm going to turn this obstacle into the path to victory. And he does. And he's never trained a professional athlete before, ever. And who's his first client? Michael Jordan. Now, this wasn't Michael Jordan in college. This was Michael Jordan, already successful, I think he was like year 2 or 3. So he goes and he pitches the Bulls and he says, I'm going to be the thing that this guy needs. And he was so confident that Michael Jordan was like, I got to meet this guy. And he goes and meets him, and he does not show up unprepared. He shows up hyper prepared and tells Michael exactly to the exercise what he's going to do and how he's going to help him, because he had read an article and Michael Jordan said, I'm tired of getting pushed around on the court by the Detroit Pistons. And so he said, I'm going to make you bigger and stronger, and this is how we're going to do it, and you're going to be able to, move around the court as you see fit. Michael Jordan says, I'm going to give you, whatever he told him, I'm going to give you 3 weeks or something. And then they ended up working together for 15 years. And Tim's whole principle is no one is ever going to know more than me. No one is ever going to understand the body, the physiology, the exercises that are needed to rehab, and no one's ever going to understand the mind better than me. And so half of what he does is physical and half of what he does is mental. And it's absolutely critical. But the thing that he talks about in that I find so amazing is that he puts his finger on the point that it's not what you see in the mirror that holds you back. It's the thing that you refuse to allow yourself to see. It's the thing you refuse to allow yourself to see. It's a lack of honesty, right? And the reason that you have that lack of honesty, going back to the fixed mindset, is you believe that your talents are innate and there's no way to develop and grow them. And because of that, you want to protect your ego right now. You're not going to look at that thing that might be holding you back because you think, well, it's always going to hold me back, so why would I acknowledge it? But the reason you acknowledge it is because a growth mindset is real and a fixed mindset is fake. Your talents are not innate. Your talents can change. They can be developed. You can grow whatever you want, whatever talent you want to acquire. Whatever it is, you can do it. Tim, my friend, thank you. Learning about you was amazing. Reading your book, Relentless, was awesome. It's one of the few books that I will read routinely because it is like the world's most effective inspirational speech, because it's full of hows, it's full of whys, and it's full of kicks in the ass, which are amazing, dude. The way your mind works totally inspires me. I love it, love it, love it. So thank you for sharing it with the world. All right, next up is someone who's very, very special to me. This is somebody that inspired me long before we started Quest, really had a helping hand in founding this company, even though he didn't know that we existed. But his ideology I found so inspiring that I just had to get him on the show. He was one of those dream guests. And Peter was on a very, very short list of people that we wanted to get on the show. Dr. Peter Diamandis is the founder of X Prize and a visionary thinker who's set his sights beyond life on Earth. He calls himself a 9-year-old trapped inside of an adult's body, and he's long been obsessed with space. And what I love is that rather than waiting for other people to do it, he realized that it seemed like NASA had given up. And so he created a company himself to give birth to private spaceflight, and that was the X Prize. And what he's done with the X Prize is bewildering. He is a man who thinks bigger than anyone I've ever met, and since meeting Peter on the show and connecting with him, he and I have become very dear friends. Peter, I certainly thank you for your friendship. And when you get together with Peter, you want to talk about no chit chat. You don't talk about the weather with Peter. You talk about how you're going to tenfold your company. You talk about how your contribution to this world is going to be tenfolded. He's not interested in 10% improvements. He's looking for 10 times improvements. But he actually holds you to that shit. Like, don't go to dinner with Peter unless you're prepared to go, yeah, what I'm doing is not nearly enough. Like, I need to be really thinking big. It's absolutely amazing. And I tell people, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Man, spending time with Peter really inspires me to be a better person. But let's take a look at his thoughts, because they are words to live by.
I fundamentally believe that there is no problem we can't solve. It's just a matter of being smarter, bringing the right people together, the right technology, the right capital, but every problem can be solved. And once you get over the initial dismay about a problem, if you can flip your mind and say, okay, there is an opportunity here, right? Problems are gold mines. And when I tell CEOs or individuals, if you can find some great problems and solve them, you're creating real value in the world for yourself, for your company, for your family, for everybody. And so I sort of like go heads down on a problem and focus on it till I crush it.
Imagine that he actually believes every word he just said. Because he does. There's no problem that we can't solve. Think about the craziest problems that we face as a society. In Peter's mind, there is no problem we can't solve. Now, those could be the words of an empty dreamer. But let's look at what he's done. He goes to NASA, I want to be an astronaut. NASA says no. He founds the X Prize with the stated mission of creating privatized space. It ends up happening. Richard Branson ends up buying that technology and turning it into Virgin Galactic. And now we are well on the way to truly privatized commercial space flights. Absolutely astonishing. But it was born of one guy's belief that, hey, I want to get to space. If I have to create the entire industry to get to space, I'm going to do it. He has another company. He's founded 17 in total, by the way. He has another company called Planetary Resources. They realized that floating around in our solar system are these big rocks full of precious metals. Any one of those rocks could be worth $1 trillion. And somebody just has to build the equipment in order to get to them, figure out how to land on them, mine them, and then get the stuff back. But just to give you an idea, that's already freakish, right? Like imagine you wake up tomorrow and that's your task. Hey, we need to go mine asteroids, right? So you're going to have to get something on it, land on it, which none of this exists yet, by the way. You have to build that technology. But on top of that, once you get there and extract it, the US government doesn't recognize that you have any rights to that. So before you do that, you've got to go petition the government to get them to change legislation in order to recognize your rights of ownership, which they did. And they lobbied the government and got the government to sign into law. This just happened like 2 weeks ago, to sign into law the thing that they need in order to actually mine the asteroids. And by the way, since that's a 10-year play to build all the equipment, you have to find some way in those 10 years to become a profitable company, which they've also done by taking the technology that they're developing ultimately to mine these asteroids to do things. Put like sensors on satellites that allow them to read temperatures of crops and things like that. So they've already made Planetary Resources, which has not yet left this planet. They've found ways to make it profitable so that they will be able to sustain their mission to actually end up doing this mining. It's all about the mindset. It's about flipping a switch and saying, I choose to believe the things that move me towards my goals, right? His mindset is a national treasure. It has absolutely impacted my thinking. And when we set out to end metabolic disease, it was Peter's name that was ringing in my mind because it's such a big goal. It's such a big goal to really end metabolic disease, not play at ending metabolic disease, but end it, right? And we're living in a world where it's something like 30,000 new people are diagnosed with diabetes every 15 seconds. It's ridiculous. Okay, we're going rapidly in the wrong direction. So who are the three of us to say, hey, we're going to put together this team of amazing individuals and we're going to end metabolic disease? But Peter told me I could. Peter allowed me to believe that I could do that, and I believe it. And I believe that there's no problem that we can't solve. I believe that. And I'm willing to act in accordance with that belief. I'm willing to not take no for an answer. I'm willing to redefine the terms if I have to. And I'm willing to keep fighting long after the people standing in my way retire, if that's what needs to happen. Adopt that mindset. These people are no different than you. They just have a different mindset. And that mindset's more effective. It's just a mindset. And that mindset is a choice. All right, Peter, man, thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done in your writing. Thank you for everything you've done to inspire so many people with your companies. And thank you for inviting me into the world of the X Prize Foundation, which I'm incredibly honored to be a part of. Man, every time I spend time with you, I truly, truly realize that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and you are making me a better person. And that is truly the highest compliment that I could ever pay anybody. So thank you. Okay, so next up is Joe Donnelly. Joe is awesome. This guy is utterly fascinating. He's somebody that I've been lucky enough to get to know, and the way that his mind works is incredible. And again, this is somebody achieves at the highest level in football only to get injured, and now he's got 2 choices. He can feel sorry for himself and do nothing with his life, or he can say, hey, this doesn't matter, and I'm going to switch over my mindset, and I'm going to move myself forward in a new career, in a new path, using the same discipline that I developed to get great at football. I can point that at anything and get great at that. And he has some really sage advice on a lot of different topics, but the topic that he's going to talk about today is addressing fear. It's such a powerful concept. So let's hear it.
Fear is like a small fire and time is the wood.
Time is the wood, absolutely.
I love that.
Yep.
Talk about what happens to that fire if you turn your back on it.
I mean, literally, you know, in life, I always tell people that the minute you recognize a fear, whether it's public speaking or maybe jumping out of an airplane, whatever it is, if you don't immediately take steps to address it, that fear is going to grow, and day by day, hour by hour, till at some point it's going to be, that fear was small at one point, but now it becomes insurmountable, and you've developed a psychological block against it. Whereas before, if you just stepped outside of your comfort zone and addressed it, you could have attempted to conquer it. Every day you let it go by, that fear festers, it grows. More time, more wood is poured on that fire, and it grows. I've seen people literally go into panic attacks, all because it's built up over time. Your opportunity then to move forward and self-generate success, when you have a giant wall in front of you, it's almost impossible. You've put yourself against odds that are basically shackling you and crippling you and paralyzing you to try to move anywhere forward in life and create success.
Yeah, I like the way that he frames that, right? Because everybody's going to be afraid of something, but that concept that time is your enemy, and I'm going to get real neurological on you for a minute. So this is, again, one of the reasons that I researched the brain so relentlessly, is it explains why what he said is so true. So there's a concept in neurology that neurons that fire together wire together, and that whatever mental pattern you get into, so let's say it's public speaking equals fear, and you sit and think, oh my God, that'd be so terrifying if I went up. You're connecting those two concepts together. You're doing that. You're doing it actively. And the worst part is you don't realize you're doing it actively. You don't realize you actually get better and more efficient. You get more neurologically efficient at worrying about a problem the more you worry about it. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to get more neurologically efficient at worrying about something. Okay, that does not seem like a good use of my energies, because now those neurons have fired together a lot. Public speaking, fear, they're tied, the connections get stronger, the synapses fire more readily, the electrical impulse goes more fast, and the core underlying thing I want you to understand is that is brain plasticity at work. Your brain is wiring to keep you safe from the fear of whatever, public speaking or whatever the case may be. And it's getting really efficient at protecting you from that. Now, going back to the what wolf are you feeding, if on the other hand, you thought, oh man, I'm going to do public speaking, this is going to be amazing, a chance to get up there and learn and see what I do, and man, you know, okay, if I fall on my face, rad, how am I going to address that? How am I going to get better at that? Then get up there, fall on your face. Okay, cool. I'm a growth mindset, so I'm not tense about the fact that I fell on my face. I'm only interested in improving. So what could I do better? Oh, preparation. Yeah, that actually would have helped a lot, because I was kind of forgetting what I wanted to cover in the heat of the moment, so I could prep, or I can write note cards, or I can get a teleprompter, whatever. So, but again, take it down to the neuroscience of what's going on in the brain, that those neurons are making connections. They're making it easier and more efficient for you to worry about that thing. So focus on things that are positive, that empower you, because you will create that super highway to joy, to empowerment, to that feeling of confidence, if that's what you focus on. So be very, very careful what you focus on. All right, Joe, man, thank you. You've been a part of this family for a long time. You supported us when nobody else knew who we were. Man, you are literally a walking billboard for accomplishment with a physique. It's absolutely astonishing what you've done with your body, and I really believe that the body is a reflection of the mind. And dude, your body reflects an amazing mind, man. And honestly, your support for this company and this community, I can't thank you enough. So thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing so openly. It was awesome. All right, next up, we have Lewis Howes. Lewis Howes, man, if any of you guys have been watching his journey, has been absolutely incredible to watch this guy go from sitting on his sister's couch, totally depressed after being a professional athlete, again, a career-ending injury. And it's fascinating how many of athletes that get injured end up having this mindset, because they know they have to in order to continue to live a fulfilling and extraordinary life, because they're going from having put all this energy into a childhood dream, into becoming great at something, into becoming one of the best in the world at something. And now that energy and enthusiasm, they want to put it into something. He put out a book, it became a New York Times bestseller, which, man, that, you know, you talk about having a dream, closing your eyes and then asking, how am I going to pull that off? And then executing. So he's got a podcast called The School of Greatness. which he was kind enough to have me on, and that was really a phenomenal experience because he, like I, is trying to learn what are those commonalities and people who have achieved something in their life, and what can we take and put to use in our own life, and putting your taking your dreams and putting them into action is something that Lewis is uniquely gifted at. And so I want to show this clip where he talks about that.
And so one of my dreams early on was to make $5,000 with a speech. And I had never spoken in public before, so it terrified me. And I never made $5,000 before, so that terrified me. And what I did is I wrote it down and I framed it. Because we would do this in sports as well. We would like frame our goals.
Right. You put a date on it, right?
I would put a date on it and I would sign it as if I awarded it to myself. But I would frame it in a nice frame and I put it up on my mirror and create like a certificate of achievement. You know, Lewis Howes has just been awarded $5,000 for giving this prestigious speech, right? And I would look at it every single day. And that may seem weird or a little like woo-woo-y or, but for me, seeing it every single day and being so clear that this was my vision. And I said, okay, what are the action steps I need to take? I broke this down just like an athlete. What are the action steps I need to take? Right. I need to find a coach because I have no clue how to speak in front of people. I need to practice and I need to figure out how to get to this point. And I would spend weeks on these 5-minute, like simple speeches. And I would stand in front of the podium, shaking, sweating before I even got up there. Just like the anticipation of speaking in front of 10 people terrified me. Right. Even though they were like friendly, they terrified me, right? And eventually I did 10 speeches in about 10 months. And the last one I got a standing ovation. Wow. And after that moment, I got a $5,000 speaking gig offer as well because I was doing the work for what I needed to do to get there. Also, I was building credibility and expertise in another topic, which allowed me to get that. And it was just an incredible lesson for me to know that I can put a dream out there, I can put it up somewhere, and I can visualize it and I can take the action to make it happen, even if I'm terrified, even if I feel like it seemed impossible to happen in that time frame.
Right, it's that concept of extreme action that I want to talk about because one thing that really saddens me is how many people have a dream, they know what they want, they're passionate about something, they want to do something in their life and they will talk endlessly about that, but they never actually do anything. They never take the concrete steps that they need to accomplish it. And I think part of the problem is when you say like baby steps or small steps, it's comforting in that it seems like everything is easy to do, but it's also not sexy, right? So the people that end up losing the most weight are the people that have the biggest weight loss goals, not the smallest. It's the person who says, I'm going to lose 100, 150 pounds, whatever the case may be. That person has a way better shot than somebody who says, I want to lose 10 pounds. Because the person who dares to have that big dream, it's more inspiring, right? So it may be more terrifying, but it's inspiring. You want to take that big moment. And I think one of the problems that people have is, one, they think the first step needs to be perfect, and that somehow if the first step isn't perfect, like nothing's going to work out. They don't realize that any journey towards success is literally how fast can you fall on your face, because falling hurts and you're going to want to stop falling real fast. So you're going to fall, you're going to learn, you're going to keep moving. Now, some people fall, it hurts, and then they just stop. But assuming that you keep progressing, they fall, it hurts, you want to fall less, so you learn, so you get really intentional about learning those lessons. But when people are paralyzed by thinking the first step needs to be perfect, or that first step doesn't seem very interesting, right? Like Keith Frozzi talks about this, the how of change. If you want to lose weight, stop putting creamer in your coffee. That's the lead domino, right? It's not about the dream, it's about the action. That you can trust, because at the end of the day, the dream doesn't matter if it stays a dream, right? It only matters when you open your eyes and execute, and you execute on your passion. Executing on your dream, executing on the thing that you're passionate about is all that matters. So every day that you're not executing, that's another day delayed that you're not actually pursuing your goals. And don't fool yourself, right? Don't let thinking about it, fantasizing about it, make you feel like you have it. So don't let that pacification happen. Don't let yourself feel like you're making progress when really you're not. The only thing that's progress is actually doing something. So make sure, if I can leave you with one thing, if this show is actually going to help you get out of the matrix, if you are actually going to adopt the Quest mindset, if you are actually going to put it to use in your life, you've got to touch base with the how. You've got to find the massive action right now, today, that you're going to take to make those dreams come true. Everyone here and everyone at home, I can't thank you guys enough for being a part of this community. It's never going to happen if it's just me up here talking. It's not even going to happen if it's me up here with a guest. It's only going to happen if you as a community come together and reinforce in each other and become essentially those 5 people that you spend the most time with by leaving comments down in the notes on YouTube, by engaging on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, letting people know what your journey is, letting people know things that you've learned about. That's really going to be the value of Inside Quest. It's going to be the community, and that's really everything. We're putting some big investments into that and to making sure that the community is vibrant, and I will tell you right now, I am only interested in people that are positive and optimistic and helping other people. So let's help each other really accomplish and achieve, and let's turn this into something that's amazing. To everyone that's already engaging in the community, honestly, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for not only helping me, but helping the other members of the community. It's truly, truly incredible. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. This is a weekly show. Our goal is to put out 52 meaningful episodes a year and really help you guys get out of the matrix and do something profound and exceptional with your life as you define it. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's about finding that thing that's authentically you. Until next week, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Thank you guys very much. Thank you.